I had a brother, Butch, who was my older brother, and he was. I was 12 when it happened, but he was murdered in Troy. He was drowned. About 3 weeks after that, and you got to picture this in your mind. You walk up the stairs. There's a landing with a hallway and a closet in front of you. And I was in the middle room, and at the top of the stairs was a telephone. I woke up. It was a little after 2 o'clock in the morning, and the phone rang outside. Okay, now I was closest to it. The ring wasn't like a ring; it was a brrr, brrr, and that's what stuck in my head, but it didn't mean anything because I was half awake. Went out, picked the phone up. Now we had already buried my older brother 2 weeks prior. I pick up the phone. I said, "Hello," and he goes, "Hi, Ray. This is Butch." And I'm going, "Yeah, yeah. What do you want?" Of course, it didn't dawn on me. I wasn't awake. He goes, Ray, tell mom and dad I'm okay. I'm doing fine. And you be a good boy.
My guest today is Ray Feurstein, who it's unusual when somebody has one NDE, but Ray has actually had two. The first one from a wasp sting, and the second one from a burst appendix when he was 17 years old. And Ray has also had some very unusual communication with spirits on the other side. And we're going to talk about a lab and an invention that he has that help enhance communication with our loved ones who are no longer here. So, Ray, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me on. Again, my name is Ray Feurstein, and I had two NDEs, near death experience. And I actually renamed that because I call it a near life experience
I like that.
because you're dead and you're coming back the other way. So it's on that side, it's a near life experience. So I I didn't know. Nobody knew. Nobody knows until it happens. But I was allergic to wasp venom, which is different than bee venom. More potent. It's a different genus of venom, and it really did a job on me. So I'll give you the short story. It was like late. It was late fall, probably October sometime, and I decided I wanted to play Demolition Derby that day with my sister's dollhouse. And
No.
oh yeah, which she wasn't very happy about, and she still isn't. She still calls me the little brat, even though I'm 71 and she's a lot older than me. But anyhow, she got upset. My mother was upset, and she said, "You go outside and clean it up, and then you'll have dinner." I went, "Okay." So I went outside. It was kind of dusky. Porch light was on. I cleaned up the mess, and I went to go back inside, and I walked up, and it was like 3 steps to the back door, and it's an old aluminum screen door. And I grabbed the knob, and there was a black wasp inside. Didn't like it. Come out, stung behind my right ear, and of course I went like that and knocked it down, killed it, and I saw it, and I went inside. By the time I got from the back porch, enclosed back porch, through the kitchen, through the dining room, and into the living room, the expression on my mother and my sister's face was, I wish I had a picture, but they screeched. And my sister later told me, she said, "You look like the Michelin tire boy." I blew up. And of course, my father was away. He was an engineer for GE. He was in Hudson Falls or some other place. So they called my godfather, and no ambulance. And of course, they were connected with the police department. Police came over. He got me, carried me into the car. And the last thing I remember before I passed on was the police officer saying, "Would you like the lights and siren?" And I go, "Yeah." That was it. I was done. I didn't see any bright lights. I didn't see any angels. What happened was I ended up, now, get this, I'm 5 going on 6 years old. So my world was 5 or 6 years, which is not a lot. So what happened was I I saw myself and I felt myself in this like tornado that had no noise. And I was riding, just imagine a gray, dark gray, light gray tornado, black, all swirling, sitting on top with your hands on the rim, just riding it like this. And on the peripheral, I could hear these voices say to me, very comforting, Ray, don't worry, blah, 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 and I wasn't afraid of anything. I was more like, holy crap, look at this, that's what's going through my, had no idea I was dead, so I'm traveling very short period into an area that was just pitch dark, but with like 5, 6 foot dots of bright light. No beam. You didn't see a beam, just these dots of all over the place. You could see them all over. And I came up to one dot, one area of bright light, and there was 3 children my age playing, 2 boys and a girl. And around it, I knew there were people around it. I could see like legs and feet, and there was noise. There was something being said, but I really wasn't concentrating on that. Okay, this one girl, she stuck out in my mind. The 2 boys had um, like like dress shirt, white shirt, and a tie, and dark pants, and it was very formal for some reason. The girl though was blonde. She had on a one-piece dress with ruffles, a bunched up sleeve here with ruffles here, tight collar with ruffles on the collar. All right. This is how vivid this is. And it was like a light beige with blue flowers dotting it all. She had white socks on, she had beige socks on with the same pattern and these black patent leather shoes. She says to me, come on down. And these voices said, Ray, you can't do that. And I went, okay. She goes, well, okay, then here, have a puppy. So she reached up and she handed me a puppy. And as soon as I went to grab it, it was like a jarring. It didn't hurt. It was just like somebody shook me violently and let me go. And next thing I remember, I'm face up with a sheet over my head. They declared me dead. They had packed me in ice to bring the swelling down. And I was dead. And I opened my eyes, took the covers, did this, and the nurse and the nurse was like here, the doctor was like here. And I went, where's my mommy? And I stood up and they both screeched like little girls. And yeah, and I just remember feeling itchy and tingly all over my body. And that was that. That was
Wow,
the
okay.
bee sting. And in retro, I am losing hearing in this ear, all due to the trauma to the ear because of this thing. It's been like that my whole life. It actually caused damage. And I have what they call Meniere's syndrome or severe vertigo from it now. As I got older, it got worse. And they
Wow.
pretty much diagnosed that's probably what caused it because of the type of damage inside the ear. So that was my 5, 6 year old account.
Okay, so can I ask you a couple questions about those kids?
Yeah,
So
sure. Go ahead.
this is a long time ago because obviously you were 5 years old. When you saw those kids and you can remember that dress, did the way that they were dressed seemed consistent with the era that you were in at that time?
No, I described it to my mother. That's who told me. They didn't ask me anything about it until I started to talk in my sleep.
Hmm.
And I actually had, I don't know, I believe it was out of body because I remember feeling like I had my pillow and I was leaning on my pillow and I was floating down the staircase and out into the kitchen where they were talking. It was late at night and they were talking, they played cards and they
You're
did all
talking
kinds of stuff.
about during your dream, you're having like an astral travel out of body experience in your
Well,
dream
I
after the
thought it was,
NDE.
yeah, I thought it was a dream. I didn't know anything then. Now being more educated as to some of the things that people have. I get what it might have been. I can't tell you one way or the other if it wasn't. The curious thing was when we woke up, they were talking about me, and when I came downstairs that next morning, I asked them what they were talking about, and they knew I wasn't there. They knew I was upstairs and asleep. I go, how did you know about that? I said, well, I was standing right there. He says, you weren't standing anywhere. So I was standing in the kitchen listening to him, but I wasn't there. So I, I I've been told that was probably an out of body that changed my life. I never was. I mean, 5 years old, I never experienced anything like that before. So who? I mean, I don't have a lot of years then to have a reference, at this point.
Yeah.
But
So you started to tell me that your mom said something about the way that that
oh,
girl was dressed when you were describing it.
yeah, once we got into it, and my parents were very they believed in this because of a past history of our family. We had a lot of what they called soothsayers. You know what they are?
Yes, but why didn't you explain to the audience what they are? Because not everybody's going to be familiar with that term.
It's an old term for
It is?
fortune tellers. They used
Yeah.
to be fortune tellers. But my great aunt was incredible, and my aunt from my father's side was incredible. We talked all the time. But I described it. She said that is more like around the 20s and 30s dress,
Okay.
formal dress.
Do you did you ever see any pictures of anybody like from your family albums from the past that
No,
resembled anybody?
no, uh, but um, I have a campus. In fact, I show the people. That's a picture of a view looking across the lake and the sunset at my cabin on the beach.
Beautiful.
I grew up up there. They bought the property in 1945, built the camp in 46, and I lived up there for 5 months out of the year. And my next door neighbor, my best friend, his name was Ron. Um, we played up there all the time. And when I was 12 years old, this is when it happened. There was a girl that used to appear to us at the edge of the beach just before you stepped edge of the forest, just before you stepped on the beach at sunset. That kind of sunset where look, it's got the long shadows and the deep, and everything. And she would be there. Her name was Lizzy, and we know this because she told us. Not speaking, you had that feeling. Yeah, yeah. And we just accepted it. We're 12 years old. We don't give a shit. It was a pretty girl. She was probably around 16, blonde, same dress, same exact dress. And every time that she appeared to us, uh, we would smell honeysuckle when she
That's
was
a
around.
wonderful smell too. Wow.
Oh, it's my favorite smell. They grew outside my house when I was growing up. In fact, I took some of that and I got it here at my home where I'm living now. So you asked me, yes, there was a person, but it wasn't any part of the family. And we found
So,
out that she died when she was 17 years old because we did some background on the lake, and she lived at a place called Dowville, not Dowville, McDowellville, that was out by the island. They flooded that valley, and they removed all the settlers that were there. And she was one of the settlers, and her father took the route that was now our pathway down to the beach from Johnstown, New York, to this place, bringing the settlers around that was spotted around the lake supplies. And she helped her dad. And she died of a fever. Back then, there was a lot of fever.
hmm.
So
In your
that's
NDE, was she the same age as you were, or did she appear when she was like the 16-year-old that you
well,
saw?
she was very thin. She was thin, petite, not she's petite, very pretty. Had a face like yours, long face, and long blonde hair, a little curly, I mean, like I said, the vivid account. I got a photographic memory, but even Ron, who doesn't, remembers all this. We talk about it periodically, and she was a friend during the time she'd come to watch us on the beach. We'd have fires. She'd be standing right. She couldn't come out of the woods for some reason. We never figured that out, never thought about it, but she never came out of the woods.
Hmm.
And one of the psychic friends I have here said she's very possible that she could be buried on a property somewhere. And that's why. So,
Interesting.
and I never went into it any farther.
Okay. Very neat. All right. Well, do you want to tell us about the second NDE that you had?
I can. You got the time?
Yeah, absolutely. I
Well,
live
I
for
was,
this stuff, Ray.
I was 17 years old. I was getting ready for prom with a girl I just started to go out with. And it was the Monday before, which was a Friday night, is our prom. And I got this horrible stomach ache. And it actually started on Sunday. So, my father, gave me Phillips milk of magnesia and uh, ginger ale. Sounds great, doesn't it?
Sounds
But it always
terrible.
well, it, it, not all at once. No, you took a couple spoons of this Philip magnesia, which was supposedly to settle the stomach because it was nausea and all that. And when we got the stomach viruses and stuff, flattened ginger is good for that.
Hmm.
So home remedies, it works too. I still use it today.
Hmm.
So anyhow, uh, he treated me, and all of a sudden my um, fever got to be about 103 degrees. And he goes, well, something's not right. So I called a doctor. This guy was an old country doctor. Took me, he was about 5 minutes away, took me to him. We were waiting for him to come in, called him, waiting for him to come in. He got there, looked at me and said, take him to the hospital, his appendix is rupturing. I got into the emergency room. They got me into a waiting room to get into the surgical theater. And I was there with my dad, and I'm telling you, it was excruciating. I don't know if anybody ever had appendicitis, but it's excruciating. It's nonstop pain. And all of a sudden, the pain went away. I went, oh, I felt great. I told my Dad, we can go home. I don't have to. I can go to the prom now. I feel great. And so he went out and told the nurse. Nurse came in. My appendix had burst. So that's why, because all the pressure and everything was. So I went septic and went bang down. I was gone. They went in. From what I understand, I had died twice on the table, and once they almost couldn't revive me, and I was gone. The first time they said I was out, I was dead for almost 15 minutes. But because I was in, a thermal, they put bags of ice around me. It cools you down, just like anybody drowning victim, and ice stick can revive them pretty quickly. That's not the case for this, and they had a hell of a time bringing me back, from what I understand. So anyhow, I'm again, you don't really know that you die. From what I'm gathering, you don't really know that you die. This time, with all my worldly 17 years, 16, 17 years. This time it was a whitewash. And I could feel myself walking, and these same voices were on either side of me. I recognized the voices, and they were saying, "You're fine, Ray. You're okay. Just you're fine. Just you're reassuring me, giving me I walked, and as I was walking, it started to turn like pastels, and parts of buildings were becoming visible. People were transparent and becoming more solid as I walked into them, and they were all talking amongst themselves, and they were just laughing, happy, blah blah blah, and saying hi to me. Hi Ray. It was like everybody knew me, and I'm going, oh, this is kind of neat. And while I'm walking, a woman came towards me, and I had to figure she was around 50 some years old, maybe 50, 55, maybe in her 50s, early 50s, with a very 40s, 50s hairdo, a white robe, which was kind of neat, and a pendant, a blue jeweled pendant here. And she walked up to me and she took me by the arm. She goes, "Hi, Ray. My name is Rose. I'm your grandmother." I went, "Oh, that's cool. Never met my grandmother. She died before I was born. I met her. I only had a grandfather I knew very shortly, for a short time." And so I'm going, "Oh, hi, Aunt Rose, Grandma Rose." And that was like kind of hard getting out of my mouth because I never said it before. She says, "You're going to be all right. You can't stay. You have something you have to do. You have something you need to do, but you're going to go back." And I was like, "I don't want to." And she goes, I know, but you have to go back. And please tell your mother that Rose says hello and Tommy is fine. He's here with me." Okay. So I don't know who Tommy was. So actually, they turned me around and they started escorting me out. And she's waving goodbye. She says, "You be good." I went, okay, you know, teenage angst, that. It still goes over when you pass away, so it's still there. I woke up and there's no sheet on my head. They actually had revived me, so I was there. And that was the end of that. So I thought. I didn't say anything. I was not asked. And it went on for a few years. And my mother said to me, "Did you have any experiences?" Because I was still, of course, I was still living home. You know, I was 18 at the time. I was starting college, so I was still kind of living home. And I said, "You mean when I went to the hospital?" And I said, she says, "Yeah." And I went, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, what was it?" And I was a little hesitant. It sounded crazy. I went, "Okay." The person I met said her name was Rose, and she's your mother, and she's my grandmother. And she told me to tell you to say hi, and Tommy is fine in here. And she went white. And I was looking at her, and I thought she was going to faint. She was, and then she did this, and she ran upstairs. And we have a family Bible that all the births and deaths are recorded in. They did that back then. She says, opens it up, and there's a picture of her mom. Never saw her before. I said, "That's her." And it said Rose, Feurstein, because they're married to a Feurstein. Now, are you kidding me? And she goes, oh, no, I'm sorry, Treble. Her name was Treble at the time. That was the married name. Um, I said, "Yeah." And I said, and she had a blue necklace pendant that hung right here by her throat. And she went like this again, ran upstairs, brought it down, and it was the pendant. I have it now. It was made out of silver, and it was a um, blue sapphire that was in the center. And it was given to her when she was a child by her mother. It's it's like 200 years old, roughly. So that was that experience. And then things started happening. And there was more and more uh, connection with the other side, more. And I didn't really follow it much because it was, I ended up being drafted. I went in. I was the one of the last drafts of the Vietnam War, so I was in that. I was I was at college, and I was in. Of course, we had a busy time. You thought, and now there's one little caveat: when I was drafted, my mother and father threw a party for me up at the camp.
Mm.
Ron and I grew up together. We're brothers, any more than even my brother and I are, because of what we did together and what we survived together, just like anybody else. And we walked onto the beach, and there was Lizzy. And this time she was facing us. And she didn't disappear right away. When we walked up to her, we were probably about 10 feet from her, which typically she goes fainter and fainter and fainter until we go past her. And she had a very solemn look on her face when normally she was smiling. And she knew that I had gotten drafted. She knew that there was something changing. And and she took her hand and did this to her chest and disappeared. And I never saw her again.
Why do you think she did that gesture?
What does it mean?
Hmm.
You know?
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Still
That's
chokes
really,
me up a little.
yeah, I see that. I see that. Hmm.
But I I smelled the periodically I smell the um, honeysuckle, and I don't know she's still there.
That's really neat. So you mentioned when you were on the other side that there were two voices that you heard that you recognized. Who were the voices?
I don't know. I mean, I've talked to a couple of very close psychic friends here that are prominent in the area about it. They asked me because I wrote a book and published a book about the incidences and Lori, I'll give you a little background of where I come from. I was born and raised Catholic. I went to Catholic school as an altar boy. I was a knight of the altar, and I actually went to 2 years of seminary. So
Wow.
I was being prompted to be a priest. The priest said to me one day, he goes, Ray, he goes, you're a great guy, nice person, talk to anybody, got a nice personality. He says, but you're not going to be a good priest. He goes, you'll get through it and you'll do your best, but you have way too many questions and not enough faith. And he just passed away a year ago. And Father Young, his name was, sweet man, intelligent, intelligent man. And he says, "You got something else going on. You go do that." But this isn't good. This isn't for you. So I thought it was pretty funny. A priest would say that to somebody.
But how cool that he recognized the authenticity and where you needed to be and you weren't on your right path.
I never thought of any of that until way later. Like I said, when I got a little bit more educated and all this worldly stuff, and some friends of mine who actually brought me kicking and screaming into the paranormal and supernatural stuff. And in fact, his name was Ray. He just recently passed away. He was one of my best friends, if not another brother that I grew up with. And enlightened me on, I met a lot of good people that enlightened me on what some of this was and what it meant, possibly meant, you know. And I've come to accept some of this. And they said, well, there's other words for this, but they say your guardian angel, your spirit guides. Okay.
And
And I go with,
that's why you recognized it because they would be familiar to you on a soul level.
oh yeah, 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 and everything is a vibratory state. Everything is in vibration resonation, and I did a lot of research into that, which we'll probably talk about a little later. But the fact being, everybody recognize you can recognize people by closing your eyes and listening to them talk.
Mm-hmm.
Recognize singers by how they sing. I mean, impressionists can do great jobs on impersonating a person, but there's this other vibe that has nothing to do with your voice. And that was the vibe that I felt. It was this nurturing, joyful, happy, um, just incredible connection with these beings that were around me. And from what I'm told, are always around me.
Yeah, I believe that. So when you were on the other side, you didn't say anything specifically about your first NDE or your second one. What kind of feelings did you have when you were on the other side? Was it just like you're here on Earth, or did it feel different?
It is, it's like being wrapped in comfort and joy and contentment and all that. Worries of the world were gone. There wasn't some such thing. There's nothing. It's just being. It's hard to put a word to something like that. Those are the words that best describe it. But there's another word that I don't think has been invented to really describe that feeling being there. Familiarity is like huge. You already know where you are. It's not, you don't know where you are. You say you know where you are. There's no unfamiliar area. Okay, it's the other parts of it are the great vibes that you get. I'm from the '60s.
Yeah.
The great vibration. The thing that's hanging here is, what about Tommy?
Yeah. What
Tommy,
about Tommy?
well, Tommy was a brother that passed away before I knew it. So I didn't know him. I was the youngest. I was the youngest in the family, and I had a sister and two brothers, and there was another brother, and he passed away. And nobody but my father and my mother obviously knew about it. Maybe a couple of people, in the families that we had that we spent time with. And that's why she turned white, because I said to her, I said, "Who's Tommy?" She explained to me who Tommy was. He was your actually bigger brother that didn't survive. And
That's
so
pretty
she,
incredible.
oh, that was like, it's not something that I would have said, oh, okay, she's the one that had the verification of it. Where would Tommy come from? I could make that up because there was no Tommies in my life at the time, you
Wow.
know.
That's pretty
So
incredible. So Grandma Rose said to you, you can't stay. You have something to do. This
yep,
happened when you were 17. You're 71 now. Have you figured out what your something to do is?
I'm not sure. I did something. Things happened. I had a brother Butch who was and it's just a little bit of lineage, if you don't mind.
Sure,
But my
sure,
brother Butch was
absolutely.
my older brother, and he was. I was 12 when it happened, but he was murdered in Troy. He was drowned, and when that happened, my mother went into a state of, the old sackcloth and beating of the chest mourning that they talk about from old times and Italians and that's what we had with her, and she almost went insane with it. We had to have She was hospitalized for a while. What happened was the staircase was uh, 15 stairs high, and you walk down the staircase, and it was this most sickening, overwhelming aroma of Blue Blaze, which was an Avon product. My older brother, Butch, Joe Jr., my father's name was Joseph, wore all the time. And we had thrown it all out. And of course, my brother and I, my older brother and I, my other older brother, got blamed for spilling it on the staircase. We said, we didn't touch any of it. You guys took it all away. We wouldn't do anything. That'd be cruel. We're not cruel people. And they finally believed this. What ended up having it happen, I was still an altar boy at the time. We went to the parish and talked with the pastor. They came over. We had to leave the house for 3 days while they performed a cleansing and exorcism. It was that bad. You couldn't breathe. It choked you. It was so bad. We came back and it was gone. About 3 weeks after that, and you got to picture this in your mind. You walk up the stairs. There's a landing with a hallway and a closet in front of you. And the hallway went to my mother's room and back as you're coming up, a middle room, and room, and then a bathroom. And I was in the middle room. And at the top of the stairs was a telephone thing with a little chair and a little desk. And you sat and you talked on the telephone. But I woke up and I know what time it was. It was almost, it was a little after 2 o'clock in the morning, and the phone rang outside. Okay. Now I was closest to it. The ring wasn't like a ring, it was a brrr, brrr, and that's what stuck in my head, but it didn't mean anything because I was half awake. Went out, picked the phone up. Now we had already buried my older brother 2 weeks prior, 3 weeks prior, or 4 weeks prior. I pick up the phone, I said, hello. And he goes, hi, Ray, this is Butch. Now, the sound of the phone was like it used to be long ago when you had the analog phones. And when somebody was in a long distance, they sounded long distance. All right. They were kind of scratchy, that's what it sounded like. And I'm going, yeah, what do you want? Of course, it didn't dawn on me. I wasn't awake. He goes, Ray, tell mom and dad I'm okay. I'm doing fine. And you be a good boy and we'll see you sometime. And I go, okay, all right. And I hung up, went back to bed. Next morning, I go downstairs and my father's having breakfast. My mother's making me breakfast. And my father says, who was on the phone last night? I went, nobody. I didn't say anything because my mom was just coming out of it. And I was afraid that it would be deemed cruel again. Years and years and years later, my father finally passed away. And I was going over there before I went to work and having breakfast with my mom. And I said, I got to tell you something. She goes, it's about Butch, isn't it? Yeah. How would you know? And she goes, I've been wanting to ask you about that. And I knew you were lying that day. I said, and I told her why. She goes, no, I understand. She goes, so what was it? And I told her. And she goes, okay. Because that's very, very interesting. She says, and I believe you. And she says, you could have probably told us. And I said, yeah, I could have, but I didn't want to get hit in the head. So,
Right, especially if they're getting blamed for the blue blaze.
yeah. So that was, things like that kept happening over all the years.
So
And
it sounds like your abilities changed, or maybe you stepped into what was your family's lineage with being able to hear spirits, connect with spirits, because you have Lizzy, you have Butch calling you on the phone. Did you have anything else that really sticks out that was really big that happened?
well, um, quite a few things happened over the years, and it seemed to be in like 12 years apart every time.
Really interesting. Okay.
Okay, at 12, all this happened. Something else happened. And I really don't know what this is all about. And I've tried to find out. And everybody says, oh, whatever. But I woke up one morning, and this was in and around the same time that all this was happening with my brother and all this. I woke up, and on my um, left hand uh, were two black, about 3/4 of an inch crescents facing out. And I took it to my mother, and she rubbed it. And she says, oh, you're late on your buttons. Well, I had no buttons on. I slept in my underwear. There was nothing in there. And I went and we tore the bed apart. And she says, well, I don't know what that's. We might have to take you to the doctor. That doesn't look good. 24 hours later, it was gone. So it looked like a tattoo, but it disappeared. Now, if anybody out there can explain to me, and I've asked everybody,
Yes,
what that
put it
is,
down in the comments. We'll check it.
really, because I don't know what it meant or it
Okay.
means, and it's never
Yeah.
come back again. Now, if you look it up on the internet, there isn't any reference to a dual crescent. The crescent was like this and like that. I can't do that. So one went, on my hand, if you can see it. One
Yeah.
went this way, and then it was just down, and there was two
Okay.
of them,
Yeah.
completely black, not faded. It looked like somebody took a fine pen and traced it. It was absolutely, and if you lay on something, it puts the imprint. Well, if it was a button, it would have had buttonholes. It would have had something. something else. And that's what my mother said. She says, it's very strange, and I don't like the looks of it. It looked like, something broke inside my hand. And I didn't do anything, like I said, we didn't get an appointment right away. And the next morning, it was gone.
Hmm.
And so we never bothered to look. So the next 12 years, at that point, I was 24 years old, right? I think I did the math right. Yeah, I think there you go. I got it right. Yeah, I hate math. Um, I was 24 years old, and it was, and I, I was standing in my mother's house. I had just gotten back from the military, just got released from military duty, and I had no place to stay, so I was staying at my mother's house until I got an apartment. There was, I slept in their room, and my father was had gotten very ill and he couldn't sleep in the bed, so they were sleeping in another room, and they gave me their room, and it has a big walk-in closet. And I woke up, and there was a figure standing in the doorway about 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. Why I know these dates, these times, because we have digital clocks. So it was pretty easy because if you wake up, a lot of times you glance over to see what time it is. You just say, crap, you know. It was around 2 o'clock, and he was standing in the doorway, just standing there. And I'm looking, and I'm going, Dad. Shook his head like this, poked his face out enough, and it was my brother Butch. And he just waved and smiled and then backed away, and that was it. Now, fast
Wow.
forward, I'm about, let's see, at that point, I'm 36 years old. I'm married, got kids, living in another house, which in fact, you have to understand, we bought a house that we had no idea. The guy who owned it built it, and he was the cousin of the guy who owned it that we bought it from, and we were their cousins.
Hmm.
It was, yeah, and I found my great grandfather's tintypes in a box up in the attic when we moved in, and we have them on the wall now. Weird coincidence like that, those aren't coincidences, really. That's something,
Right. Right.
you know. We went for a walk on a Thanksgiving to get the food down and not fall asleep. Walked into an open house and bought it. So that's with that. But my wife and I, when we both worked, and if somebody got sick, you know, coughing, hacking, couldn't see, we got up, went downstairs, and slept on the couch in the living room, and left the other person upstairs. So if she was sick, and she went downstairs. So I woke up, and again, it was around two. It was 2 o'clock on the nose because I remember 2:00, and I heard this sound, and I got up to go see if she was all right. Top of the stairs, I hear this woman, very young voice, singing 6 notes in triplets. I'm going to sing it. I don't want to hurt anybody's ears, but it was la, 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 la. And I went, what the heck? And I ran down, and there's a landing. And I ran on the landing. She sang it again, got down to the bottom of the stairs and into the living room, which is right across from the staircase, sang it again. So, and it was coming from the dining room, which is right below our bedroom where I was sleeping. And again, I'm a musician as well, so I remembered the tones. This voice, Lori, the voice was so pure, clean, and loud, but the loudness wasn't hurting. It was just there, very present, melancholy, most beautiful voice I ever heard. Most beautiful. And it still rings in my head, in my ears. I still can hear it. I said to my wife, who was on the couch, I go, did you hear that? She goes, yeah, somebody's singing. And she rolled over because, she was disturbed her. She was not feeling well. But back then, so the next morning I got up, and she says, I said, do you remember She goes, yeah, what's a radio doing? I said, what's a radio? She goes, what was it? I said, it was a voice coming out of the dining room. She goes, well, I heard it. I heard it was very pretty. And I'm like, yep. Then I copied down the notation that, and I excused it, but those, that triad of notes, 3 and 6, 3, 6, 3, 6, triplets, 2 triplets saying 3 times, which is not really significant in the music world, but what I'm hearing is spiritually, it's significant. Never happened again.
You're the second interview that I've done in the last 2 weeks where somebody has brought up the numbers 3, 6, and he also had 9. 3, 6, and 9. Those were the numbers.
3, 6, and 9. Yes. Yeah. I'm told they're divine numbers.
Yes.
Okay. So,
did you ever figure out who she was?
No. I only have a reference to people that are more educated and more experienced locally. And these 2 ladies are just awesome. I love them. They're great friends, and they've helped me through a lot of these, what the hell is this thing going on? Experiences. And they told me, they said, well, they came over. They told me that there is some kind of an energy vortex right in the middle of our dining room. And
Interesting.
they saw spirits, they saw things. They said, this house is very active. It's like a way station, they said, for souls that seem to come in and out of there. And both of them weren't there at the same time, said exactly the same thing to me. And I never told either one of them what either one said. So that's a good benchmark. I'm an engineer too, been an engineer for 30 years. So I got that engineering thing,
Yeah.
So, Lori, the way this it haunted me for years. Just you got to do something. Somebody was going, do something with this, And it wasn't until actually, now I'm 30, now I'm 70 now. This happened 5 years ago. I met a guy that had a paranormal paranormal investigation group. And we were talking, and I told him what I was trying to develop. And I had a very rudimentary lab. And what I wanted to do is I was a communications engineer for 30 plus years. And I was a director of engineering for I'm not going to mention them. I don't want to boost their ratings, but one of the big worldwide communication companies. So I was steeped my whole life in vibration. I was a musician. I took lessons when I was 7 years old. I took accordion. She's too fat for me, too fat for me. I love the stuff, all that stuff. and piano. I'm a voice coach. I teach music here. I've played in the Navy bands. I've been playing in bands. I've been a musician my whole life. But I also was involved in radio, communications, telemetry, and all that. So I've been in the communication part of my life, my whole life, because music is a communication, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Absolutely. And it's been my best friend my whole life. Absolute best friend.
I don't think life would be as good without music.
Pardon me?
Life would not be as good without music.
Very true. Very true. I can't understand anybody who doesn't like music. There are people, I met them. But anyhow, I tell people this, you cannot like music, but unfortunately, you are music.
Because
Of
you're a
your
vibration.
Mm-hmm. You are in the universal band, and you can't do anything about it. So
that's cute.
Anyhow, so I get a lot of things back to me, and I won't say them here because it's a family show. But the gist of the whole thing is, it bugged me so badly that I finally started making it, and it was like something was pushing me, something was helping me, something was giving me information, giving me a way to go, a pathway. And I built this small lab that I built to measure, detect, monitor uh, the uh, effects that paranormal supernatural events have on our world. Okay. Um, I took it to a place. And I had actually the squawk box that talked back was engineered by a guy. His name is Martin up in Quebec, Canada, that was building some of these things. I contacted him just by accident or by design. I have no idea. Happened onto this website. I called him. I got him, and he goes, "Okay, what do you need?" And I said, "I need this to do this, and I need you to do that. And that I'm going to build this, and this is the interface." And he built this program for me that operates off of PC. And ultimately started to sell it for people. And it's like these spirit boxes they call them, but it's not. He's designed something even better. It's very, very good. And so I built this thing, and I monitored radio frequency, EMF, EMP, electromagnetic frequencies, radio frequencies, electromagnetic force lines, everything I had to do, vibratory and frequency wise, I could monitor with this little device that I had on one laptop. And it would talk to us in English. Okay. Okay. I brought it to a place called Herkimer, New York, to a house that was very haunted, that these guys were doing an investigation. And they invited me, and I went there. All of a sudden, it started talking in German. And then we found out that Herkimer is a German settlement. And I went, holy crap. We got all kinds of information. We got a guy that actually is there. His name is Stephen uh, Vanderbilt, I think his last name was. He was a lieutenant in a militia that was posted there. And we started looking up all these names, and they all were there in a historical record.
So
It was
you
like,
were getting evidential evidence of what you were hearing.
yeah, for the first time.
Wow.
I've never done anything like that before. So then my friend, her name is Tracy Flutie. She's a fluent, very well-known psychic in this area. Said to me, and I brought her and I showed her, and she she goes, "What the hell did you make here?" Because she's getting all this stuff and all this vibe off, and she had to get away from it because it was just overloading. She said, "I'm getting overloaded. I got to walk upstairs. Let's go talk." And so she got me in touch with a place called a guy named Sam, who's from the Fort William Henry um, site up in Lake George, New York. And we brought it there for the first time. And on my website that I feature this, which is Owl Labs, OWEL, Other Worlds Energy Lab, is the clip from the very first investigation, which just blew everybody away. So if you want to go look at this, there's other things, other sessions with other people that just it my daughter and I are partners in this, and we go to people's houses. We try to give them. It was built also to give relief to some people about their loved ones, and we've had some incredible experiences, which I can't post because it's private. But
Yeah,
we talk about them.
that's really amazing. So you said you have a lab. So where did you build the lab? Did you build it in the house where you've got that vortex energy?
I built, yeah, my home. I'm an electronics engineer, and I actually have a repair business on the side that I do little repairs. And I'm an inventor. I got 2 patents and I got 4 patent pendings, and some of them are electronic. And I like to tinker. And I wasn't sure I knew what I wanted to get, but I knew that when I wake up in the morning, I go downstairs, I go, when the hell did I do this? I look at this, go, okay, so we'll go with that. All right, it works, and we try it out and it worked. And so we brought it to Fort William Henry. And I don't know if you know the history of Fort William Henry.
I do
Well,
not. And Jim might as well share it because I'm sure not everybody's going to know anyway.
no, probably not. Then you could go look it up. But well, what happened was we set it up, and all of a sudden it was talking German. Then it started talking French, because that was the French and Indian War. And we were getting Iroquois come across, because I had a person, one of his staff, who was a Native American who understood Iroquois. All of a sudden, we get all this, and you're going to hear that if you go in and listen to that clip. It's amazing.
Wow.
So those notes were spurred me to build this device for the specific purpose of monitoring and analyzing to determine what and where this energy comes from and what effects they have on our world. And I was able to draw some conclusions, some theories. And one basic theory of why does the temperature drop when there's a spiritual encounter. So I was able to duplicate that with electronics, but I got it to duplicate and found what the actual, it's called a Peltier device. It's a Peltier effect that has to do with ionic flow. And because if we stay with the laws of physics are constant at this point, as far as we know, and the Peltier device uses what they call ions. It's like those ion cleaners that it smells like pine when you right. Okay, that's called a free ion, and it goes out. And that's what this thing does, and that's why you have a smell, and you have that drop in temperature because of whatever's over there, whatever the differential between their dimension and our dimension. When they breach it, it causes that effect and sucks the energy out of our dimension. It creates that cold. My theory.
Wow, that's pretty neat. So, what if somebody's had a loss or they feel like there's some kind of a spirit that's living in their house? How can they get something like this to do that type of experimentation, or does it have to be, a
Well,
service? Is it too big for like an individual to have?
this thing is evolved. I put on a translator because it cost $10,000 to build this. It's a
Wow.
lot. Yeah. But I have so many different technologies in concert with each other that work. And I built and designed and programmed the interfaces for them. So you can't buy this. You could buy it. I would sell it to you, but I don't know anybody that would want it for that amount of money. It's a lot of money.
So, how do you
But
use it then? It's portable and you're taking it to these locations? So, can people hire you if they're within your area?
yeah, yeah, we go outside of the Schenectady, Albany, Tri-City area into Warren County. I mean, we go a little ways out to do it, depending on what it is. But we've been out a lot of places. And one, for instance, her name was Mary, and she contacted me 3 months after her husband passed away. Passed away young. They were in their 30s. Died of an infection. He was in the he was in the military. I said, don't tell us anything. I don't want to know anything. I just when we come, we get what we get, and you tell me what that means. And that's because we don't want any precursor to any of this. We got there. It was her mother, their children, an aunt, and her daughter, and his daughter. He said, we're here to learn and communicate. We're not here to hurt anybody. If you're with us, come through. And the first voice that came through said Air Force. And they backed up. They said he was in the Air Force. So he always called his buddies Air Force. And of course, we wouldn't know that. 2.5 hours later, my daughter and I are standing with our mouths open. They're having a conversation back and forth. And the person's name is Doug, said enough things. Now, I'm told that spirits lie and they try to imitate. But some of it, I've shown the video to the psychic friends, and they say no. It wasn't a malevolence. It wasn't a frisky spirit. It was something more. It was an enlightened spirit, which is what you become. Okay, an enlightened spirit, a level up type. And we said, good. So they came with us too. And we get verification from them that what kind of being is coming through. Because we do get those.
Well, that's
The malevolent. We've had malevolence come through.
okay.
But most of the time we protect ourselves. We do a prayer, open and enclosing prayer, ask the spirit guides, the angels, whatever, to protect us, keep all positivity, keep out the negativity. We do all that.
Oh,
We cleanse it afterwards. We do the ritual rites that have
that's
to be
good.
done. Yeah.
So it's interesting to me because I know you've had a lot of loss in your life. So you lost your brother Butch, you've lost your mother, you've lost your father, you recently lost your friend Ray. Is that his name?
Yeah.
I thought you had the same name. So I'm
You did.
curious, did you ever use your device to
Yep.
try to contact them? And and
um, my mother and father came through, and my wife's mother and father came through very briefly. They let us know with certain words. We get. I got to say that I also added a transcription uh, program to it, and now I get full sentences typed out. Even if you don't hear a voice, it comes through. It's like it was amazing how this worked. But her father would come through fishing boat, and he loved to fish. Uh, my father said woodworking. He was a woodworker. He liked that. He was an engineer for GE. My mom just came through and said hello, and we didn't have large conversations with everybody. Ray did come through once to me, and he busted my balls, and I knew it was him. And I said, Ray, I said, Ray, if you're
what are
here,
friends for?
yeah. He said, Ray, if you're here, let me know that you're here. It's by myself. And I said, if you would please just say something that I would know. And he goes, I'm here, dude, because I used to say that all the time to him. And he goes, and he would bust my face because he didn't like being called dude, and it would just come out of my mouth when we got excited, just like anything else. Just like a friend of mine, Canadian, goes a all the time, a, and I do that all the time too. So he did that. And I went, okay, thanks a lot,
Oh,
thanks a
that's
lot.
pretty fun. Oh,
Yeah,
that's wonderful.
and I try not to bother them. They're on another whole journey, and I don't want them hanging around. I want them to go on their journey. They're in a new life. It's got to be happy. Don't stay here. This is not it here. You know,
Yeah. So have you lost your fear of death from all of
I
this?
never had one.
You never had one. Well, I suppose if
No.
you had that experience at the age of 5, you really probably never would have developed it because you would have known so early that there was something else.
Well, I think you get touched when you're there and you've done an NDE or NLE, new life experience.
Hmm.
You get touched, and you are touched. Like if you can feel it, and something is residual from that connection that you take. Isn't this? You could take it with you. That feeling that you had over there, you could get that. Even though you come back here, this world is really screwed up, and people tend to irk you or tend to make you sad, or it's the world, it's the dimension we're in, and okay, we have to put up with it. But you still maintain that when you think about it, it's there. This whatever it is that's over there that gives you that feeling, it's you take it with you, and when you remember, there's no fear about death. There's nothing to fear anyhow about death. Not at all. Not after what I've experienced. The one thing that I, the one thing I'm afraid of is how I'm going to go. I don't want the pain thing. You know.
Well, it's
Just turn the
interesting you
switch.
would say that because I feel like I've watched, listened to, and read over 1,000 near-death experiences, and I I have so many that have said at the moment that something happened, an impact in a car accident, hitting
Yeah,
their head on the pavement for a bike accident, they're automatically out of their body and they don't ever feel that pain. So I don't know that we do feel that pain. I think it's almost our grace that we don't feel that.
I was in a lot of pain before I passed away. Before I died, in my with my appendix. Even, I mean, I still had pain, even though it was a lot less than what it was. There's like a residual pain on your nerves. Your nerves still carry that pain signal up to your brain for a short period of time until it dissipates. And I suffocated when I was 5 and 6 because of anaphylactic shock. Okay, so that's a whole different pain, and it was like a switch. It turned it right off. As soon as you transverse that thin layer between dimensions, it's gone. It's it stays here, and then you continue on with nothing to worry about. You know, and
Yeah.
it comes back, and you pick it back up again.
Yeah.
You know?
So normally when I ask somebody this question, it may be a different answer from you because you've shared with us that you also have a photographic memory, but these incidents happened a long, long time ago. And I usually ask people if they faded over time, but I'm going to ask you a different way. Did those experiences seem less real, the same, or more real than this earthly incarnation?
No difference. They were as real as I'm sitting here right now. There was no, there was no um, airiness. Or I told you, I kind of drifted. It was white out, and then it just drifted into a solid picture, and that was it. That's all I can tell you. When I was 5 and 6, I was there. It's like a switch turned on and off. I was there. It's it. So, but while I was there, uh, I had no feeling of. I mean, I was aware of my surroundings. I was aware of everything. Okay, so it wasn't like um, it was like misty. It wasn't like that. It was clear as a bell. No different than today. I mean, like I said, these experiences are like as clear to me today and as present to me today as they happened just a moment ago.
That's amazing. Well, I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I'm really grateful that you have decided to share your story because I know that there is a little bit of I don't know. There's a little bit of reluctance because people do judge. And I'm just so happy that you're sharing your story with the world. And I'm so happy that you came back so that you could invent a machine that would bring people so much comfort and being able to connect and know without a shadow of a doubt that their loved ones are still around them. So I think that's wonderful. So if people want to connect with you, if they want to be able to have you come out and work with them, or they want to buy your book, how do people get a hold of you?
Um, you could open the window and shout out the window, and I might hear you, but I don't think that's going to work. You
Not unless
can.
you have a super loud voice with those octaves.
Well, I got a loud one. Well, I have a website. It's called the Paranormal Scientific Research Lab, and it's on Facebook. PSR Labs on Facebook. So you can contact me at um, Owl Labs, OWELLABS at gmail.com.
So, Ray, you also wrote a book. Can you tell us a little bit about where they can find your book?
Yeah, it's on Amazon Books, and it's Home Spirit Home.
Okay.
And it's 10 short stories of the true paranormal, uh, my experiences. And the first one is about the wasp thing and what happened.
Okay.
Could I say one more thing?
Yeah.
Don't be afraid of passing away. It's not the end. There's no blanking out. You got somebody waiting for you all the time, whether you know them or not. So don't aspire to get there. But when it's your time, it's going to be fine. You're not going to have a problem.
That's very comforting. Thank you for sharing that. Excellent. Ray, thank you so much for all of your stories and your insights and just for sharing everything with the world. I really appreciate you and thank you so much. And thank you to everybody for watching.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to maybe another session.
Okay, I would welcome that as well.
Have a good night.
Next up, check out this playlist of other NDE interviews. Please like and subscribe. It really helps this channel to grow so I can bring you more content. Thank you for watching. I'm so glad you're here.